never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. In today's video, we're going to be talking some more college football, but first, just wanted to thank this week's sponsor, Arden's Burger and Grill in Central South Carolina. Make sure to tell Donnie and Angie, the fanboys, sent you. Make sure to try the double dipped wings or the famous macaroni and cheese chili dog. That's Arden's Burger and Grill in Central South Carolina in the Walmart parking lot beside Dollar Tree. Call ahead at 864-639-5368 or go to their website at ardensburgerandgrill.com. Make sure to spell out the word and. That's ardensburgerandgrill.com in Central South Carolina. But I found a list of the most hated team in each Power 5 conference in college football. So I figured today we would discuss that, and you can let me know in the comments section down below whether or not you agree with it. And I'll give a few quick thoughts as I go on why I think each team that is the most hated team in each conference is the most hated team in each conference. Before we do that, though, let me first remind you that since it's Friday, it is getting close to another weekend of wrestling. Tomorrow night, I will be at Southern Fried Championship Wrestling at 405 Community Court in Monroe, Georgia. Doors open at 6 o'clock. Bell time will be 7 o'clock. Please go to the Southern Fried Championship Wrestling Facebook page and see the complete match listing. But I will tell you, we have two huge main events. One is a fatal four-way for the Southern Fried Championship Wrestling Heavyweight Championship. And the other one is Michael Judas versus Javier Reyes in a last rights match, which is no count out, no disqualification. There must be a winner. That's tomorrow night. Doors open at 6 o'clock. Bell time is 7 o'clock at 405 Community Court in Monroe, Georgia for some Southern Fried Championship Wrestling. And Sunday afternoon, doors open at 4 o'clock. Bell time will be 4:30 for Ultimate Wrestling Federation. UWF Arena, 6687 Highway 72 West Colbert, Georgia. Main event will be the new UWF Heavyweight Champion Nick Halen versus current Impact Superstar Jimmy Jacobs. And please go to the Ultimate Wrestling Federation Facebook page to see all the matches we have coming up Sunday at UWF. And I've got one quick story that I want somebody to tell me whether or not it's possible, because my wife says she doesn't think it's possible, and I'm not smart enough, especially when it comes to science, to even begin to guess on whether or not I believe this is possible. But there's a story making the rounds now. You can go to Google if you would like to read the full story. It happened in Virginia. There is a set of identical twin brothers that went to a twin camp in 2017. Well, at that camp, they met identical twin sisters. So we have identical twin brothers who married identical twin sisters. And maybe I'm just curious and infatuated with this story because I have twins, so anything that involves twins always catches my eye, because when you have twins, stories like this are more apt to catch your attention. But the identical twin brothers and the identical twin sisters got married, and they both just had a baby, and they both had boys. So we have first cousins who were born about a week apart, but supposedly their DNAs are identical now. So if they were to ever get tested through DNA, the test would reveal that they're brothers, even though they're only first cousins. My wife says she doesn't think that's possible, that every single person has something different in their DNA. And science was my worst subject my whole entire life, so I'm not going to begin to manufacture a guess, because that's too much deep thinking and I would get a headache just thinking about it. But if you know about things like this, and if you're good at science, please feel free to let me know on whether or not that's possible. The identical twin brothers marry identical twin sisters, and they both have a baby, and supposedly the babies have the exact same DNA, even though they're first cousins. But on to the main topic of today's video: the most hated team in each Power 5 conference. Now, I couldn't find one that talked about every single conference, so it's just the Power 5 conferences. But there's also another category that's HM, and I honestly don't know if that's honorable mention or if that's hated most. I'm going to assume that it's honorable mention, but it might be hated most. But I read the article in its entirety, trying to find out what HM stood for, and I couldn't find out. But in the Big Ten, it's Ohio State. In the SEC, it's Alabama. In the Big 12, Texas. In the Pac-12, USC. And in the ACC, it's Florida State. And the HM, whether that's honorable mention or whether that's hated most, is Georgia. Now, if you look over that list and you look at each conference, you have Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, USC, and Florida State in their respective conferences. And just by glancing at that, without even doing a whole lot of deep thinking, it looks like that the 5 teams that are hated the most are hated the most because they win. You don't look at the Big Ten and say, boy, you know, I sure do hate Rutgers. You don't look over the SEC and say, man, I sure do hate Vanderbilt. You don't go to the Big 12 and say, man, you know what? I just absolutely cannot stand Iowa State. You don't go to the Pac-12 and hate on Oregon State. You don't go to the ACC in football and hate on Duke. So the teams that are hated the most in each conference are hated the most because they win. And that's an obvious answer, because, first of all, if you don't like the team, automatically you're going to be jealous of how much they're accomplishing, because you want your team to accomplish that. But also, if you're watching a sports show or listening to a sports show on the radio, if they're talking college football, unless you're listening to a local show that's talking about the local team, if they're talking national college football, the teams they're going to discuss pretty much all the time are Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, USC, and Florida State. And if you don't like those teams, that makes you hate them even more because you turn on the TV or you turn on the radio and you want to hear about everybody, and what you're hearing about is the same old teams. So it makes you hate them even more because you feel like they're getting preferential treatment because everybody else gets left out. You've got 130 teams in college football, and all they're talking about is the same 5 or 6 teams. And that's true, but the reason is those are the teams that have the biggest fan bases, and those are the teams that win. You're not going to have a 20-minute segment on football on the radio or TV about Rice Owls. Why? Because nobody cares. So when they're talking college football, they're going to talk about teams that win and teams that have large fan bases. So it should be pretty obvious that the most hated team in each conference is going to be Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, USC, Florida State. And I think honorable mention is Georgia, but it could be hated most. But I think it's honorable mention, and the reason why Georgia couldn't make the list as far as the conference is because they're in the same conference as Alabama. Georgia may have been the most hated team in their conference had they been in any other conference, but everybody hates Alabama, and you're in the same conference as them, so of course you're not going to be more hated than they are. And that's what makes me think that that's honorable mention, not hated most, because to me, hated most of anybody in the country would be Ohio State. Now, that's just a guess. I don't know that. But to me, if you polled every single college football fan in America, Ohio State would be hated more than any other team. And in case you have not thought about this, Florida State won the Cheez-It Bowl. And that was just a plain old Cheez-It Bowl. And then LSU won the Citrus Bowl, which was sponsored by Cheez-Its. So Florida State won the Cheez-It Bowl, and LSU won the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. So that makes me think and makes me wonder, because Florida State and LSU play next year. So when Florida State and LSU play next year, can we officially say that the winner of that game is for sure the cheesiest? That's just something I was thinking about this week when I was thinking about Florida State and LSU, because they both won the Cheez-It Bowl. So the winner of that game will be declared the cheesiest. But let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Did you hear about the bread store that burnt down? The business is now toast. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.